Hey guys, welcome to the first video on my channel. This video is going to be the first of the Get Better With Me series. Basically, the Get Better With Me is exactly what it sounds like. I'm just going to take you guys along with me on my makeup journey as I progress and get better, whether that's on myself or on future clients. And a lot of the products that I'm using are drugstore products, so they're very affordable and easy to find. To start off, I'm going to be using the Pond's Dry Skin Cream. This cream is great at hydrating. I like to use it before I apply foundation or concealer so that it has enough time to sink into my skin. That way, when I apply the foundation, it won't move around, which will basically just defeat the purpose if it does. Next, I'm going in with a spoolie to kind of just brush my brows up, and then I'm going to it's very sharp and pencil-like, which gives you great precision, and you're able to get hair-like strokes with it, which makes it easy to have that natural brow look and too dark or For my concealer, I'm going to be using the LA Girl Pro Concealer in the shade Fawn. And I'm going to mix that with the ColourPop Creamy Concealer. That is going to be in the shade Deep Dark. I like to mix them together because the LA Girl one is a little too light for me and the ColourPop one is a little too dark. So them two together give me the perfect shade for my concealer. So I like to start on the ends of my brow, near the arch, so I can get more precision, and it's easier to start off that way. I use more concealer on the end, and I kind of lighten the amount of concealer I use when I get to the start of my brow, just to give it a more natural look. Usually I go in lighter on the bottom and darker on the top, but I don't think I did that this time. It did still come out nice, but I would prefer that method because it also helps with giving it a more natural look. The brush that I'm using is from Wet n Wild. It's their flat, small brush. I like to use this brush because I can get as close to my brow as possible without making too many mistakes. I've noticed that the smaller the brush is, the more precision you can get with the tracing and the outlining of your brow. I'm not gonna lie, my brows were getting very difficult, so I had to go in and make a couple tweaks, and I did end up running out of my Benefits brow pencil. I had to go in with my NYX micro brow pencil in the shade Chocolate. It is a little lighter than my Benefits brow pencil, but it still got the job done, and I was able to make those adjustments where it was needed. To blend out the concealer, I used another Wet n Wild brush. This one is like a fluffy eyeshadow brush. The bristles aren't that long, which is another reason why I think it's so good for blending. I like to go in a circular tapping motion. I don't really like to rub because I don't want to spread it too much. Tapping for me works best for blending my concealer. Just tap away until I feel like it's blended enough. I make sure to go in between my eyebrows so there's not like a blank empty space there, because it does look weird if you just leave it like that. After I was done blending, I went in with my Brow or Never Clear Brow Gel from Victoria's Secret. This brow gel isn't anything too special. Like I said, most of the products I'm using are drugstore products. I think I might have got this for like $10 one day at Victoria's Secret. But it is a good product overall, and it helps keep my brows in place really well so that they don't move too much throughout the day. After I was done with my brows, I used the same brush that I used to apply my concealer, and I just applied that to my eyelids so that my eyeshadow could have a base. I think that it just gives it more pigment, and it just helps it stay still throughout the day when there is a base for your eyeshadow. And as you can see, I used a damp beauty blender to blend out the eyelids. To start my eyeshadow look, I went in with my Morphe palette, and I used the shade Road Trip as like my base shade. I kind of just put that over my crease and on the corners of my eyelids. I decided that I wanted to do a pink look, and I figured that Road Trip would be the perfect color to start with so that it wouldn't overpower the pink because it's not too dark for it to kind of look like a smoky eye. Next, I went in with my Makeup Revolution matte eyeshadow palette. The pigment isn't that great, but for a drugstore product, it is pretty good. It has a really wide range of colors. You do have to go in a couple times to get that perfect pigment you want, but eventually you will get the color you're looking for. So I started with a hot pink shade, and I'm not exactly sure where I got the brush that I'm using, but it's very similar to the Wet n Wild brush that I used to blend out my concealer. The brush that I used for my base eyeshadow was also from the same brush company, and it was just a more fluffy eyeshadow brush. It wasn't too big though. And I just kind of rotated back and forth using that brush to the base brush to kind of blend out the original color so that I can get a more seamless look. And as you can see here, I'm using a flat Wet n Wild brush to apply the lighter shade of pink. I'm kind of just packing it on to my eyelids, not blending too much and not rubbing, because this is a lighter pink and the pigment is even harder to see than the hot pink. So I wanted to make sure I could see as much of it as possible. So I just packed it on instead of blending it out right away. Throughout the whole eyeshadow process, I did rotate back and forth with the original base brush, like I said, just to get that seamless color. Didn't want any of the lines to be too out there, so I figured that would be the best thing to do. After I finished with the other eye, I went in with that same concealer brush to kind of just clean up the ends of my eyelids and to give it a more wing-like look. I figured that would just make it look cleaner and just define the eyeshadow a bit more. When I was done doing that, I went in with my Sun Shadows palette, pocket palette from Sephora, and I went in with the shiny metallic pink light color, and I just applied that to my inner eyelid. and finished off by blending the corners of my eyes. After that, I went in with a Wet n Wild Impossible primer. It's really good for mattifying and blurring your pores, but I just really do not like the texture of it. It's kind of grainy and it just falls apart really easily. When I was done with that, I went in with my Maybelline New York 30-Hour Mocha foundation, and I mixed that with the Maybelline 24-Hour Deep Bronze foundation. The 30-hour and the 24-hour kind of have different textures, but when they're mixed, they do fit well together. I just used a fluffy brush from Wet n Wild to apply that throughout my face. And for my nose area, I used the tip of the brush that I used to mix it to apply it so that it could just fit better and I wouldn't have to like spread it anywhere that wasn't necessary. I used the same concealer combo for my concealer under my eyes and my nose and chin, but I did use a little bit more of the LA Girl Pro Concealer so that it'll be a little bit lighter because I prefer a light under eye rather than a darker one. And I used the same concealer brush or the same eyeshadow brush from Wet n Wild to blend out the concealer throughout my face. And I did go in with the foundation brush that I used so that I could blur out the concealer lines and have a more seamless look. After that, I went in with the e.l.f. 16-Hour Camo Concealer. I forgot what shade it is, but it is very light. I like to use only a small dot of this because a little goes a long way, and I don't want my under eye to be overly bright. And I am using the same concealer brush to blend it out, as well as the foundation brush to get rid of the lines. To set my chin and forehead and nose area, I used the Milani Translucent Medium to Deep Setting Powder. I like to use that on my forehead and my chin area so that it's not too bright. And for that, I use a flat, damp beauty blender, really small, so that I can be more precise with my applications. For my under eyes, I went with the Airspun Loose Face Powder in Translucent. I only used a little bit of this because a little does go a long way. I don't tend to bake, I kind of just press it into my skin. I did the same thing with the Milani setting powder because I noticed that when I bake, I'm not sure if I do it right or I do it wrong somehow, but I always come out looking a little too ghostly. So I just tap it into my skin until I notice that it fades away and I get the perfect coverage. I did use a little bit too much on my left eye, I think it was, my left or right under eye. So I minimized the amount that I put on the beauty blender the second time around. After that, I went in with my NYX Epic Ink Liner in black. One thing about me, I'm not big on eyeliner. This was actually my first time doing a full wing eyeliner, so it did take me a little while. My first eye came out a little wonky, but by the time I got to the second eye, I think I did a pretty good job. And I was literally being as steady and as careful as I could be just to make sure that I didn't mess up too much because I already knew that it probably wasn't going to be perfect. I think that using the concealer to kind of clean up my eyeshadow helped out a lot with my wing. It kind of gave me like a template of where to draw my wing at. And as you can see, I was just really happy to actually do it somewhat right, because I really have never done a perfect wing liner before. This was the best job I've ever done. This was the first full eyeshadow, full wing liner that I've done. So I was just really excited and proud of myself. And I just used some concealer to clean up my wing a little bit, and then I went in on my bottom eyelids with the same eyeshadow colors just to give it a little pop. Next, I'm going in with my ColourPop concealer. I've noticed that powder contour makes me look really ashy, but this concealer has been doing a great job with my contour, so that's what I've been using, and I'm just gonna stick to it for now until I can find like a better substitute. I've been doing a pretty good job with my nose contour recently, and I like to contour the bottom of my nose just to make it look a little shorter and to give that illusion that it's like a little pointier, you know? Next, I'm going in with my Mineral Fusion mascara. I'm pretty sure I got this from Whole Foods. I'm applying it to my top lashes because they were a little bit dull from the eyeshadow. Then I'm gonna go in with my Duo lash glue. It's in the color white, but it dries clear. I like to apply this on my on my eyelid, because I think it makes the application of the lashes a bit easier and quicker. It does get a little messy for me because my hands aren't that steady, but try not to get them on your actual lashes. Then I'm just gonna apply mascara to my bottom lashes. I started off using the Mineral Fusion mascara, but then I kind of transferred in with a different one just because it was looking a little clumpy, and this mascara, the bristles were a little smaller, so I could separate them a bit better. For my blush, I used my Sephora face palette. I like my blush to pop, but I also don't want it to be too bright, so I kind of just went in with it and I blended it out a bit. And I used the bronzer from the same palette, kind of just to add a little bit warmth to my face. I used the bronzer brush from Chic Pro, and I just went over my forehead area, near my hairline, and along my jawline, just to give me that glow. When I was done with that, I went in with the angled foundation brush from Ulta, and I used that to buff out the lines, the lines from like the creases and the blush connecting with the contour, or just like blending out the foundation that was along my jawline, just to make sure it didn't look like a mask and that it blended well into my neck. I also used the same Sephora palette for my highlight. I added that along my cheekbones and my nose just to give it a glow, and I blended that in a good amount just so it didn't look like I just plopped it on my face. When I was done with that, I went in with my Ruby Kisses lip liner in the shade Deep Brown. I mixed that with the Kiss New York lip liner in the color Mixed Berries, and I feel like it's just a really good combo. It gives it that sweet, lovey-dovey kind of look, and it's not too dark or too bright when it's mixed together. I use a brush to kind of just blend them so that it didn't look too separated, and I think that was a good call. After that, I went with my Milani lip gloss. It's kind of like a lip plumper, and that's in the shade 110. I apply that all over my lips, and I use the brush once again to just blend it in to make it look a bit more seamless and to kind of just give it that ombre kind of look. When I was done that, I used a tiny brush from my Solve brush collection. I did get that from Amazon. It was very inexpensive. I used that with some of the foundation to just shape my lips and make it look a bit more clean. After that, I went in with another small brush from my Solve collection, and I applied that same highlighter from the Sephora palette on my top lip. I love doing that because it kind of gives it like a Cupid's bow kind of look, even though I don't have one, but the highlight makes it pop a bit more. Then I sprayed my Milani Make It Last setting spray all over my face, and I used another beauty blender to just tap it in. It helps it stay a little longer. And when I was done that, I just cleaned off my nose ring because it had a lot of foundation on it. So this is the finished look, guys. Stay tuned for more Get Better With Me videos, and just follow me along on my journey as I progress. Get better makeup products, get better techniques and tricks. Don't be afraid or don't hesitate to drop any tips or tricks you might have for me down in the comments. Make sure you put on your notifications so that you can get notified when another Get Better With Me video drops, and stay tuned for more. And last but definitely not least, do not forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!